Welcome to Worlds Apart, Words Together, where best friends share laughter, stories, and an unbreakable bond. And I'm here today with my normal co-host Marit.
Go horse.
Uh, but we have a new host, or not host, I guess host, on our podcast today.
Yeah.
Hi.
You want to introduce her?
You can.
Oh, I can. Okay. Yeah, as Leah said, we are here with a guest slash host for today, and it's Georgia. And Georgia is one of my friends. She is from South Africa, and I met her during my master's studies at Erasmus University in forensic and legal psychology. And she just graduated, right?
Yes.
Woo!
Yeah, you graduated, so congratulations on that.
Thank
I am
you.
still in classes,
You
but
got
that's
stats
okay.
out the way. Stats
I
and
did to get stats out of the way, so that's great.
that's
Just have etiology left. But yeah, Georgia, welcome. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me. I'm really excited to be here.
Yeah,
Really cool. Yeah.
As anyone who ever does listen to this, Georgia is our one loyal, constant listener, so
she
it's a
is.
big deal for her to be in here.
Number one.
We are very happy to have her here.
Yeah. Really cool to be here.
Okay, we're good. I didn't see anything, but we're good now.
Okay. Technical difficulties averted.
Technical difficulties are always a pain in the ass. Well, I guess I'll kind of get us started for today. For people who listen to our podcast, aka Georgia, you know that we prioritize self growth and just this journey of that is life, and that we kind of tackle topics that we come across during our day to day life as growing up, becoming adults, having new phases in our life, and just kind of adjusting to whatever is being thrown at us. And we thought it would be interesting to hear the perspectives of a different person than just us the entire time. So that's the reason why we kind of asked Georgia to join us today and talk about her and experiences and things that she had to battle and how she is battling them or how she battled them in the past. So that's what we're going to be focusing on today.
So I guess to kind of get started in kind of like the questions and just start discussion, you did grow up in South Africa and then moved to the Netherlands. Do you want to talk about kind of like the culture, the I guess moving transition since we have been through a month of moving, and then kind of like the cultural differences and different things like that?
Yeah. So I grew up in Johannesburg, South Africa, and I lived there until I was 19, and then I moved to the Netherlands for school. Um, the moving was, I mean, I think moving in general is always difficult. I found this was the first time that I had to move anywhere far from home, and it was in the middle of the pandemic. So that was something that I'm sure a lot of people had to experience at that time as well. But because of the pandemic, the whole plan was that my parents, or at least one of my parents, was going to come with me to the Netherlands to kind of like get me set up. And then because of the pandemic, that wasn't possible, so I had to go by myself. And
Damn.
I'd never flown by myself. I'd never like, and actually the place that I ended up going to in the Netherlands is Groningen, which is up in the north of the country. Don't laugh.
Yep.
It's a great place. And um, I remember that I had applied to a couple different universities in the Netherlands, and in I think in 2019 I'd taken a trip with my dad to. I had to see some of the universities, and then some of them I had to do the entrance exam. So I came, and
Did
I
you have to
had
be there in person
yeah.
for that?
Mhm.
Damn.
So I went and kind of had my heart set on Amsterdam, the University of Amsterdam. And that was where we were staying as well, just like as a base in the country, we stayed in Amsterdam. So I was like, I want to go here. This is going to be it. It's going to be great. We went to see Groningen one day, and it was raining so much. It was horrible. So we got off the train, walked like kind of out of the train station and like just a little bit into the town. And then I remember kind of like it was cold and raining and miserable, and my dad and I were kind of just like sitting there like that, and he was like, "No, let's leave." And I was like, "Yeah, let's go. Let's do this. I'm not doing this." Got back on the train, went back to Amsterdam, and then Groningen is actually where I ended up going. So I didn't even really go see it when I came to visit. I kind of just arrived. I arrived and I was like, okay. I had limited Dutch skills from Duolingo, and I thought this is gonna be this is gonna get me through. But luckily, my older brother also lives in the Netherlands. He came. We have a 3-year age difference, so he had done his bachelor's in Maastricht and then moved to Amsterdam for his master's. So he came to pick me up at the airport and take me to Groningen and like just have me set up like overnight, and then he had to leave in the morning. I started getting ready, like trying to figure stuff out. He had gone to there was an Albert Heijn, like the grocery store. At the place I was living, it was like student housing because they don't do like the like dorm situation like in the Netherlands. In the States, they have like student housing, which is kind of just like apartment complexes for students. So I had a room there, and then there was like a small shopping center across the street where the grocery store was. And I was just really anxious. Like that day that I got there, I was like, I'm not going to manage. I'm freaking out. And I said to my brother, I was like, can you go and like get some groceries and stuff like that? I'm going to sit here and just unpack my stuff. And he was like, why don't you come with me? You need to see what it's like. Like, just come. And I was like, no, you go. I've got to unpack stuff. I have to get ready. And then he went and he did some groceries, and then he came back and he was like, I left a couple of things off the list. And I was like, why'd you do that? And he was like, because you're going to go get them now. Like, and I was like, no. And he was like, no, well, then you're just not going to have toilet paper. You're not going to have like your bare essentials. I did not listen to you. I was like, oh my God. So then I ended up having to go and get it. And it was fine. I remember being so scared to spend any money because I was like, first of all, there was the whole currency change, and the rand is so weak compared to the euro. So I didn't really understand like the value of things. I was like, is this expensive? Is it not? I was like doing conversions in my head. I was just scared to do anything. I was like, what if I'm doing this wrong? And then, yeah, I kind of got settled in. The next day, my brother left, and he was like, you're going to be fine. You've got this. Like, I'm 2 hours away if you need me. Everything's going to be okay. And I was like, thanks. It'll be good.
That helps a lot, honestly, to have someone
Huge.
that you know very well and you love so close to you when you're moving to a different country.
Definitely. But what I then learned at a later stage was that he left that day and immediately phoned my mom to tell her that he was like, she's not going to make it. Like, there's no way. I just left her. There's no way she's going to make this. Like, I'm at the bus stop, and like the bus stop was out. Like, I could see it from my room, like my window. And he was like, I'm sitting at the bus stop. If I turn around, I can see her watching me. Like, I just know she's not going to make it. And I was like, what the fuck? He came back to see me like 2 months later, and he was like, I'm not going to lie, I didn't think you were going to make it.
And here you are, like 4 years later.
Yeah, exactly. We got there. We got through. So yeah, the move
still thriving
was interesting. It was a difficult, also because like with the pandemic most of my first year was online. First couple of weeks, I was like, there's just no one here, and like nothing's happening outside. Like, there's nothing going on,
and no one was allowed to go outside either.
Yeah, so I was just like, I felt really lonely, and I was like, it was like a mix of obviously being homesick, but also just feeling like I couldn't even go out and explore and do stuff. But luckily,
I think COVID and the pandemic itself was its own culture. Like, we talk about cultures from different countries or even different parts of different countries, but COVID really created its own culture in a way.
100%. It's so universal. Like, everybody knows. They just have this like,
COVID, yeah, we know that.
It knows exactly what it means. So yeah, and then luckily the faculty for psychology kind of organized like a meetup outside in a park kind of thing, and that's where I was able to at least meet some friends and just get to know the people that I was going to be studying with. And that was the first time where I felt like, okay, I'm seeing other people, and I feel like I'm a little bit more settled now. So that's
so typical of a psych department too.
We're gonna have you guys all meet outside. Let's go sit outside and touch the grass, and it was a good one. But it was good. It was good.
So
Yeah.
what made you choose the like major and academic topics that you have found interest in?
Like specifically to start studying psychology or like forensics
Yeah,
and
or
yeah.
studying psychology, like is there something that had like in your life or just you found it interesting topic? Like what made you go down that kind of pathway
Um,
for academics and future studies?
what so specifically, I've always what made me want to go into psychology was actually a psychologist that I'd been seeing for a long time throughout my teens. Um, and I saw specific psychologist. Her name's Nicole. She's lovely, and I saw her from when I was 14 until about 19. And she was just a very big part of my life. I struggled a lot with depression throughout those years, and I remember just. I mean, I saw her like twice a week for 5 years straight. So I was telling her,
Wow.
and she was very also like very typical like psychotherapist. It didn't feel like a like I was completing a program. I would just go there to like rant and unload and just speak to someone. Um, and what's funny is Nicole actually the first time she saw me as a patient was when I was 6 because I was apparently just a very anxious child. From what my parents had said, and my sister, my younger sister, who's 6 years younger than me, I didn't really like the idea of there being a baby in the family. I was feeling very like left out by it. So I saw Nicole for the first time when I was 6, and then I saw her again from when I was 14 to 19. So I feel like she's been a very constant presence in my life. And she actually still had like some, when you're obviously like child therapy is a very different dynamic than when you're having a conversation with an adolescent or an adult. So she had kept some of the drawings and letters that I'd written from when I was 6, and she showed them to me again when I was like 15. And I was like, this is so cute, but the shit I was writing about, I was like, this child is disturbed. Like I was so concerned about someone coming in to kill my parents, and I was just really writing about it in these letters, and I was like, wow, like that's
Which is crazy to have to worry about that kind of stuff when you're like 6.
yeah. I don't even really know where that came from. I think I was just very like
I mean, probably South Africa,
true, but I
like
hadn't
just
really
the
experienced that
place.
until I was like 12. I think was the first time I had an experience of like a direct crime experience. But I mean, I do think it's something you're aware of growing up
I guess
within,
unconsciously you just knew.
yeah. I was like, oh, my parents. Um, but yeah, I always felt, especially I'd say within like 2 years into therapy, because for the first year, from when I was like 14, I didn't really want to be there going to therapy. I felt like it was definitely my mom who kind of facilitated everything and was like, you need to do this. And, I'm obviously grateful that she did that for me at the time. But where I was mentally, I just didn't want to be talking to anyone. So I spent a lot of
Yeah.
the first year just being very like quiet if necessary, wouldn't really speak much if I didn't want to, or just like not saying more than was necessary. But I started noticing big changes around being like 16, 17. And I remember thinking that like the impact she had on me is the kind of impact I would like to have on somebody else. So I think that's what kind of pushed me into psychology and wanting to understand things that people go through. And then when I was 17, I switched schools and I went from the South African schooling system to A levels, or the Cambridge system. And that was the first time there where they offered like psychology as a class you could take in high school. So then I was like, okay. I actually started like taking it in a class setting, and I just really enjoyed it. So I was like, okay, this is the direction that I'm going to go in.
And now you're doing, or you did, forensic and legal psychology,
Yeah.
which is, I think, kind of a different mindset than, because you're not going to be able to be as impactful
No,
in the
for
way that
sure.
you're
Yeah.
describing Nicole had that impact on you.
Yeah.
So, what made you switch that branch of psychology?
So within going into my bachelor's, like I think a lot of students going into psychology don't know all of the like subfields of psychology or all the different ways that you can be used. So
Yeah.
I went in definitely with the mentality of like I'm going to be a clinical psychologist and I'm going to be a therapist, because that's kind of the image of it that I had.
Yeah.
Um,
That's the image most people
yeah,
have of
which
psychology.
I mean I think it's a great pursuit for sure. I just it was something that was the only part of psychology that I'd been like exposed to. So that was my opinion of it.
Yeah.
And then within the bachelor's, they obviously kind of expose you to the different parts of psychology. So we started doing like social psychology, and then we started doing neuropsychology, and just seeing all the different like routes that were available. And I found neuropsychology and forensic psychology, when I was able to do those classes, to be like most interesting to me, and I really connected with the material that we were learning about and things like that. So the to follow on with forensic psychology was kind of, in a way, what I wanted was that I could go and specialize in forensic neuropsychology. And that was something that I was like, I didn't have to pick between the neuropsychology or the forensics. I could have like the combination of both.
Both.
But
Yeah.
also, the more you learn about it, and especially within our degree, because then we started focusing on it even more so in our masters. But just learning how how many like shortcomings are within the legal system, and things that need to be improved, things, current practices that we have that aren't serving the people affected, or things like that. It was just, the more I learned about it, the more I wanted to be a part of a change for it. That's kind of where that came from then, definitely. And I think also just my background in South Africa, um,
Yeah.
and just exposure
Helps.
to um, just crime in a different way, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I started wondering a little bit more about that as well.
Very nice.
Do you plan on staying in the Netherlands, or do you plan on going back to South Africa, or where do you kind of see yourself living?
I don't think I'm going to go back to South Africa. I have thought about it before, but I just find, it's difficult because I love South Africa. I have a lot of love for it. It's where I was born, it's where I grew up, and I have a lot of good memories of it, and just a lot of good things to say about it. But I also think that the lifestyle and the way the country currently is and the way it's going, I feel like I just always feel really stressed when I'm in South Africa. I feel very
Yeah.
like on high alert.
To be fair, good reason.
Yeah, just it's something that I only noticed when I left South Africa, that I was feeling more relaxed and more like life was actually more enjoyable, because there were so many things that I could like just comfortably start doing by myself and just navigating by myself, and I felt like that was a really empowering feeling. And then going back to South Africa, I mean, I look forward to going back to South Africa. I love going to see my family and my friends that are still there. And there's a lot of great things that I hold really close to heart when it comes to South Africa. But I do notice, sort of like just immediately upon arrival, that I'm like, you get into like a certain state of mind where it just feels stressed out, feels like there's a bit of hostility still. So I don't see myself going back to South Africa, at least not in the near future. With regards, I mean, I love living in the Netherlands. I think it's really is one such a great country. It was so easy to move to and to like get used to it. I mean, everything is really, when it comes to like the, your more basic things like setting up your bank account and health insurance, like it's really simple to do. And I was doing it by myself. So a part of me was like, I thought I was going to like screw stuff up and make big mistakes doing that, but it was actually so simple just to do. And I was like, so they make it really easy for you to live here. And I just think the way of life is, there's such a good
A
work-life
little too
balance.
easy.
True. But yeah, I've loved living here. Um, and I think I'm a little bit more like opportunity oriented. So as far as like, I'm looking to do my PhD hopefully in the near future. So I mean, I'm kind of just looking at wherever the opportunity arises. I would be happy to go. There's places in Italy that I'm looking at. There's places in the States that I'm looking at. Like, it's kind of just all over. Wherever the right thing comes along, I'd be happy to explore that.
That's fair. And I know like Mar and I talked about it quite a bit about just keeping your mind open and your like kind of like your mind and your heart open and going wherever opportunities present itself, because you never know what good and what good change and how that can push you to grow.
Yeah,
And especially while you're still in your early 20s.
Yeah.
exactly.
Like maybe when you're 54,
Yeah,
you're like, let's
That's such
move
a
to
specific
Italy.
age.
exactly.
54.
I could have said 60, but I was like, nah, that's pushing it. So I'll go with 54.
Exactly. I mean, no, it is. If there's ever a time to like experiment and then see where you want to stay, it's now. And I think,
Yeah.
somebody said as well, or I read it somewhere, I can't remember, but they were like, if an opportunity comes to you, it's because you're ready to accept it, or you're in a position, you're qualified to have it. Like if it wouldn't come to you if it wasn't, if you weren't in some way meant to have it. So
Yeah, but then that other shit happens, and I'm just
which other shit?
like that rejection you
That
received.
rejection. We're going to keep names out of it. I
That
think that's
must
probably
not have been
safe,
the
but I
right
know
opportunity.
it was, yeah, no, it
Right, but
definitely
that's the
wasn't.
thing. It may not have, and I think the future will tell us why it wasn't.
Yeah.
Because I last year, 2 years ago, received all those rejections from the schools in the Netherlands,
Hmm.
which then led me to go to Lewis University, which then led me to meet Michael, with whom I'm now living together.
That's so cute.
So it's like I was upset that I got all those rejections, but it did get me an extra year in the US
Hmm.
where I met my partner,
Yeah.
my boyfriend. So it's like, yes, you got that rejection from the position just recently, which we are questioning, like, why? But it does make me think, like, okay, well, something else that needs to
Absolutely.
happen is going to happen.
And it took me a while to, I mean, it took me a while to kind of start seeing it that way because immediately after, receiving that kind of rejection, I was very just emotional about it and angry. And I think you
Of
immediately start
course,
wondering,
yeah.
like, why, what did I not do that was, not good enough or, whatever the
I
case
was
might be.
emotional and angry about it for
Me
you.
Well, I
too.
heard about
You know what we're talking about, yeah. But
it.
at the same time, like obviously that didn't work out. So the next step moving forward was for me to decide, okay, what do I do now? Also, because I feel like I can't kind of go about my day to day life not really having a goal to reach. Like
Yeah.
I can't just
Fair,
aimlessly do
yeah.
everything. So as soon as this fell through, which I had in my mind, this was the goal that I was working towards. And as soon as that fell through, I kind of was in a position where I was like, okay, now what? Like, I don't know what I'm doing after this. So it definitely forced me to start now thinking, okay, what are some other opportunities that I can look into? And, in looking around, I found a lot of really, really incredible opportunities as well. Like, I mean, it's not to say that those will come through or they might not. But, if I hadn't experienced the rejection here, I wouldn't be aware of some of the opportunities that I'm looking at now. So it all
That is
comes
true.
together in the way that
It'll all fall into place at some point. It's just the question of like when.
exactly. And it sounds so cliche when people say like everything happens for a reason. And like I know some people get annoyed when people say that, but I really do believe that
Hey man, I
without a
always say
doubt,
that everything happens for a reason.
absolutely. Yeah, and just because you don't
And
know what the reason is right now doesn't mean that there isn't one. It can become clear
no,
to you later on in
exactly.
life. So
Because maybe this rejection for this assistant position means that you're going to be able to accept a really great like PhD position somewhere else in the near future,
yeah,
or just another great opportunity that arises.
exactly. And I mean, even
You don't
now
know
I'm
that.
working with some interesting people that I found just by asking, just by reaching out and being like, "Do you guys need help with anything?" And you know, surprising. I actually, I my parents will laugh at me if I say this, but they, would my parents sometimes they would say things to me that I kind of felt like a bit of a rebellious teenager, being like, "You don't understand." They would do that thing of being like, "Have you just reached out to people and just ask people what they're working on and ask if they need help and stuff?" And I was being very like, "That's not how it works nowadays. Like, you don't just do that. Like, you can't just email people." And my mom was like, just try. Like, what do you have to lose? Just try. So I did. And I emailed like some professors from different universities. And the amount of people that responded and were like, yeah, I need help. What do you want to do? I'm like, okay. So it actually works in a way. So yeah,
Yeah, I think in today's world, like in career wise, and probably in like everyday life too, but especially in academics and career, it is all about networking. But no one ever tells you how to network. They're like, "Oh yeah, yeah, networking, networking. You need to build your network," and you're like, "Okay, how?"
exactly.
They don't give you the how,
That's so true.
and it's kind of funny looking back because even at my time at Lindenwood, even after all the jumping around from schools, the amount of times I just inserted myself and was like, I'm gonna do this. Like, I don't care if anyone's gonna support me. I'm just gonna do it and see what
And
happens.
it works out usually. And if it doesn't, then what? It doesn't. That's fine. Move on to the
Yeah,
next
it's like,
thing.
okay, well, I learned. All well, moving on. Like, no
Exactly.
one, like, there was no pressure to begin with because I'm the one that, put myself there.
Exactly. It's all in your control, and then sometimes it works out, and that's great. And then that's just how it goes. I actually had a
But
question,
yeah,
Lee.
I think
Were
that's
you?
so important that you like took that step and just like reaching out,
Yeah,
because a lot of people in college or just finished college or even in high school trying to get into college, just being brave enough to send the email is huge.
yeah,
Like, it seems scary. These people seem like either like super scary or super high up or
yeah.
like super well known. Whatever the reason is, you just make the contact, because the worst thing they can do is not respond or say
Exactly.
no. Like, that's the worst thing that can happen.
Yeah, that's true. I've been pleasantly surprised by most things that are, most responses that I've gotten. But I actually wanted to ask you, Leah, did you stay at Lindenwood after your bachelor's, or because I know you guys met there? So then, how did that go
Yeah,
with that?
so for me, I bounced around my first 2.5 years of undergrad. So about 2.5 years of my bachelor's, I bounced around to three different schools.
Hmm.
And then I went to Lindenwood start of my fake junior year. So that would have been fall of 19, right before COVID.
Hmm.
And so I finished my bachelor's there and then did 2 more years of my master's there because I didn't really want to move to school again.
Hmm.
And I wanted to take my fifth year for swimming. So the only way to do that is to stay in school. So I just decided to, the master's degree was only 2 years. So I just decided to just stay there. It
Yeah.
just made sense.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah.
And then Mart went to Lewis.
Well,
For 1 year.
for 1 year.
Why did
I was
you?
gonna come.
Why did you come? Like, why did you not stay at Lewis? Just out of curiosity. Like,
So I also had still scholarship for swimming
hmm.
for that first year. And then my second year, I was going to be like, how am I going to pay for school? So I applied for a lot of GA positions, graduate assistant positions within Lewis University.
Hmm.
And I got a bunch of rejections and a bunch of rejections. And I was like, this is fucked. Like, I don't know what I'm going to do.
Yeah.
Um, my sister, with being the smart person she is, a few months before that was like, why don't you just apply to some schools here in the Netherlands just in case it doesn't work out with the US? I'm like, I'll apply for it. It's whatever. I'm not gonna do anything about it. Sure. So I applied to Rotterdam because that was the only one that still had their applications open. Like Amsterdam, Maastricht, all of them, the applications were already
Did
closed.
you look at
So I
Groningen?
applied to Rotterdam. Huh?
Did you look at Groningen?
Not even. I don't think they have like forensic psych there. Do they?
Actually, do.
Okay.
Check it. I'm
Well.
gonna check. I'm pretty sure they do.
Mara
Okay.
wasn't very interested in it anyway, so she just did it.
Yeah. No. I was not about to go to freaking Groningen.
Well, I don't know what you
Like,
have
come
against Groningen.
on.
I loved it there.
I've never been. Maybe that's why.
We'll make a plan. We'll make a plan. I'll show you around.
sounds,
I'll show you around my hometown.
sounds good. My own country. That's
No, they
great.
do. Clinical forensic psychology and victimology.
Oh yes, no, I did look at that. I don't know why I didn't sign up for that one. Maybe it was also closed. I'm not sure,
Fine, I didn't
but
sign up
all
for
I
it
know
either.
is that Rotterdam was still the only one that had applications. So I applied for that while I was still in the US and totally expecting to go back to the US. Got all these rejections, and then at some point I was like, I never heard back from Rotterdam because I'd taken that test, like the entrance test,
Hmm.
and I called them.
Did
It's
you
like,
do it in
hey,
person?
yeah,
So we were there at the same time?
we were.
Did we see each other? I can't even remember.
Probably not.
Okay, that's cool.
Because there were so many people
There
there.
were a lot of people. Yeah.
Yeah. No, so we took that test, and then I called them at like, it was July, like halfway through July. And I said, hey, I'm just checking because I never heard back from you guys about whether I was admitted or rejected from your school. And he was like, oh, we sent out an exception letter like June 1st.
Yeah.
And I was like, excuse me? I was like, I never got an email, dude. He was like, no, 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 we sent it to your school email. I'm like, what?
I did the same thing.
Yeah, I'm like,
I
I
didn't know
asked
that I
him,
had a
says,
school email.
what? No, because all the things, the application form, the test, like everything was done with the personal email,
Yes.
but then they sent the
Yeah.
exception letter to your school email
Yes.
without even notifying that it would be sent
No,
there.
I know. I'm going to give, so Leah, to give you context for how this went. So, another friend of mine that I studied with in Groningen, her name's Emma, she studied at Rotterdam with us as well. So,
Yeah.
the day, June 1st, was the day that they gave out the letters of acceptance or rejection. And I had gone to the gym with my friend Emma, and we were just very confused because I was kind of just sitting around like, no email, no email. Like I was just, bouncing around from machine to machine, kind of just being like, there's still nothing. Like I don't know what's going on. And then I got a message from Emma, who was somewhere else across the gym, and she was like, I got in, and I was like, yay! Like I don't know if I. She was like, did you get in? I was like, I have no idea. I didn't get anything. She was like, check your email. I was like, I'm looking at my email. There's nothing here. And she was like, did you log in? I was like, I'm always logged in. It's my email. Like I just go in and look at it. And she was like, no, your school email. I was like, what school email are you talking about? She was like, okay, go here. Go. She was like, it's an Outlook email. I was like, I don't have any Outlook email. Like I use Gmail. I don't know what you're talking about. And she was like, no. So we're having this conversation through text. Like I'm sitting at like some leg machine and she's somewhere else on the other side just telling me like where to go and log in. I log in. There are so many emails to this thing that I just did not know were a thing. I was
Yeah.
like, what? And then the top one just had the little confetti thing. And I was like, I got it through.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
So that I totally missed that too. Like I did not
Yeah.
even think once to check my school
I
email.
didn't know it existed.
So I called them. I didn't either.
Yeah.
So I called him and I was like, "Hey man, what's going on?" And he said, "Well, you have 2 days to decide whether you want to come or not." And I'm like, "Shit." Like here I am saying goodbye to Michael yesterday, thinking I would see him the next week, and I called him and I said, "Hey babe, I'm not going to see you for a while."
Oh God.
That was
Yeah,
heartbreaking.
I can imagine.
And then literally the next fucking day,
Mm-hmm.
I emailed this one GA position that I was still awaiting the response from. I was like, hey, I decided I'm going to stay in the Netherlands to pursue my academic career. And she emailed me back saying, oh, what a bummer. We just wanted to let you know we want to hire you this year.
Would have gone back on it? Like, if you could, would you have chosen to stay?
I still would have chosen to stay in the Netherlands because it was forensic and legal psychology, and that was what I wanted to do.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah, because
And
your program at Lewis wasn't really what you wanted. It was just
no,
something you settled for to keep
Mm,
swimming.
and to keep studying, like to just have a
Yeah,
master's degree,
yeah,
because I didn't want to. After my bachelor's, didn't want to go straight into working because I was like, when I start working, there's no way in hell I'm going to go back to school full time
yeah,
because I'm used to having like an income.
fair enough.
Um, but yeah, that was that way that I got accepted into that. And that was literally 2 weeks before school started.
Damn.
Yeah, so I had to figure everything out. But see, that's like things happen.
Yeah, the way the
If I
universe.
didn't call Rotterdam to be like, hey, dude, what's up? I never would have known.
I also wouldn't have.
And if those, yeah, and if those GA positions would not have rejected me and rejected me and rejected me, I would not have been where I am right now. So,
It's kind of crazy to think about it like that when you look back. And I mean, I'm sure at that time the rejections must have been really frustrating and hard to deal with as well.
oh, they were,
So then
yeah.
you're like in the moment, it's just so annoying. Like hindsight's a bitch sometimes because in the moment you're going through so much like emotional pain. And then you get to like a point where
Yeah.
you're happy with where you are, but then you look back and you're like, oh, that was all worth it. And I'm like, it sucked in the
Yeah.
moment. It was horrible.
So thinking about your like punched in the gut moments. Yeah.
That's
Just
such
reflect
an
on all the
impressive
times that it
way.
felt horrible.
Yeah, out of all the times that you've had a setback in your life, looking back on it, what is one of the times where you're like, this is where I really grew? I know it's a deep question.
Yeah, it is, but I also I think I have a response. Okay, so when I started studying at Erasmus, I actually didn't have a place to live, and the Netherlands just has a really bad housing crisis at the moment. It's very difficult to find a place, especially as like a student, for example, because even as a student working part time, like a lot of the times, your parents will maybe help you pay your rent and stuff like that. And I understand for landlords because they're very like hesitant to rent out an apartment to someone who's like, don't worry, my parents in South Africa will pay for this. Like they don't really trust you that much. So it was really, really difficult to find a place to live. And the current place that I live now, um, I am able to have it because of a family friend who has it. But at the time when I moved here, it wasn't available for me to use. So I was, kind of in a position where I was like, okay, I'm starting my master's tomorrow, but I don't have anywhere to live. So I ended up, and I just continuously kept getting rejections from landlords being like, no, this apartment's given to someone else, given to someone else. And that was just so horrible because there were so many times where I felt like this would be perfect if it worked out. Like this would be the perfect location. This would be, oh, this is perfect for me. Like this is the perfect price. Like this would work great. And it just kept on not happening. So for the first like 5 months of my master's, I was living with my brother who lived at the time lived in Utrecht, and he lived with his girlfriend, one bedroom apartment, and I was just living on their couch. And I was like, I am so
Was
sorry.
it for that
It
long?
was like 5 months. Yeah,
Jesus, like until like January?
yeah, yeah.
Wow.
No, it was horrible. I mean, okay, look, it was. Oh my god, I feel like I'm getting so many like memories now. I'm gonna walk you through it. So I got there, and I think emotionally there were so many things that were just shit at that time. I was really upset at just the way things had gone. I was angry at just so many factors about like why I didn't have a place to live and how that had not worked out. And prior to that, I had been in South Africa for that summer period. So a lot of those rejections were like building up over the summer, where I was getting to a point where I was like, I have to move back to the Netherlands in 2 weeks and I don't have anywhere to live. I have to move back in 1 week and I don't have anywhere to live. Like it was just the stress was just building, and then it got to the point where I arrived in the Netherlands and I was like, I don't know anywhere to go. And so I was living with my brother and his girlfriend, who I'm just so grateful for them because my brother and I are super close, and his girlfriend is one of my best friends. I love her very, very dearly. So, I mean, it was not an uncomfortable situation like that. Like, we all are super close. But I felt really bad, like, even though I know that they were okay with it. And I spoke to them multiple times about it, both together and individually, kind of just saying to them, like, I'm so sorry that this is the situation we're in because I felt so bad being in their space. And it's a one bedroom apartment for a couple. Like they're living their life. He's going to work, she's going to school. And I mean, I'm just like kind of there. I felt really bad for them. And I was like, I'm so sorry that I'm in this, that like we're all in this position. The funny thing was the day that I moved in with them, like my brother came to like fetch me from the train station. And he was trying to be like, oh, we're going to live together. This is going to be so fun. And I was just like crying. I was like, this isn't good. I feel so bad. And then as we got home to his apartment, his girlfriend phones Cassie and she's like, I just broke my foot. And I'm like, what? She's like, broke my foot. I'm at work. My foot's broken. I don't know what to do. So she
Oh
comes
my
home.
god.
And this was her saying her foot is broken. Like it wasn't a diagnosis yet that we had gone. Like she
Yeah.
just said, like, something's just happened at work and my foot's broken. Like I'm telling you it's broken. So she comes home and we're like, obviously I'm just there with my bags, like on their couch. I'm like, hi. And she's like, my foot's broken. And I was like, oh my God. So we ended up going to see a doctor because there was like their GP was like near the house. And so we took her there and like she's like hobbling along on her foot or whatever. And the doctor kind of like looks at it and like touches it a bit and she's like, it's sprained. And she was like, "Can we get an X-ray? Like this, like I'm telling you, I felt something really weird going on. Like, can you please check it or whatever?" And she was like, "No, I'm telling you, it's a sprain. Like, don't worry." So we go
I
home.
have a feeling where this is going.
Oh, well, okay, no, I don't know where your feeling's going, but anyway, so we go home, and then it just wasn't like, it was swelling up, and she couldn't walk in it. So I was like, okay, we'll go to the emergency GP after hours kind of thing. So we went there, and then he did an X-ray, and then he came back, and he was like, "Yeah, it's broken." And she was like, "Okay." So she was not able to like go to work for those next few months as well because she couldn't like walk on her foot or whatever. And I just remember she kept saying to me like, "Oh, Georgie, the timing is so good," because my brother works like um, his job is like quite demanding in terms of hours, and he works in The Hague, so he has to go like from at the time from Utrecht to The Hague. Like it was a pretty like decent amount of traveling morning and evening, and his hours were just, he could be gone the entire day and get home kind of like late at night basically. So she was just really happy to have someone in the house to just be like, "Oh, do you want to go like take a walk?" And she'd go down with like her crutches or something, which was like, "Do you want to come to the supermarket with me?" Like she was just happy to have someone there. And she just kept saying to me, she's like, "Oh, I'm so glad you moved in when you did, because like I needed someone." And I was like, "Oh, that's sweet." But yeah, that whole 5 months was just a lot of ups and downs. There were a lot of times where I was like, I feel like I'm going to get a place to live, and then a rejection would come in, and I'd be back at square one. And then I felt really bad being in the apartment a lot of the time, so I felt really guilty about like just being in everyone's space. And for some reason, when things aren't going well, even though it's out of your control, you feel like you failed in a way. So I was just constantly feeling guilty. Like I would be talking to my parents, and I
Yeah.
was just guilty about it, and they would try and be like telling me like, "Listen, this happens. We can't do anything about it right now." But I just felt really like just a lot of different emotions, like a lot of anger and just upset about it. So then I would just leave the house every now and then because I was like, "Shame, I don't want them to see me cry again." So I would just go and sit by the canal, like in Utrecht. I'd just be sitting there crying next to the canal, like on the phone with my mom. And she was like, "Oh, do you need us to come?" And I was like, "No, you don't need to waste money on a ticket to come here. It's fine." So I was, yeah.
Um,
And then I found a place to live.
and so back to like the initial question,
Yes.
that was definitely a very like tough situation.
Yeah.
And what would you say made you stronger out of that situation, or what? Yeah,
I think my parents' support was a huge thing that kept me going, because I think sometimes when you're in the middle of a difficult situation, it can be very difficult to see, you know, not I want to say the positives, because sometimes in some situations it's not like, "Oh, look at the positives." Like there aren't particular like actual positives in the moment, but there are ways to interpret it that sometimes
yeah,
when you're in the middle of something you just can't see that. And I felt like my parents were just really good at helping me to try and rationalize the situation as best that I could. And I've always done a lot of journaling, a lot of just like trying to figure out my thoughts in that way. And there was a lot of times where I would have conversations with my parents. I mean, we had the same conversation multiple times a week, because I would go through periods where like I was doing okay. I was like, "Okay, today's not been a bad day." And then the next day I'd be right back at square one, and I'd phone them crying because I was just overwhelmed by everything. Um, and they would, try and kind of tell me, that things are good. You're going to understand why you needed to be in this position right now at a later stage. Like things are going to become clearer. You just got to get through it a day at a time now. And I tried to like really think about what, what this kind of period was bringing in for me. Anything, one thing that I definitely realized, and I can, realize a lot of different things about it now in hindsight, but I think being close to my brother and his girlfriend at that time was a really good thing for me, especially in the transition of having left Groningen to go to Rotterdam. Because one thing that I
yeah,
struggled with so much was in Groningen, I lived with, I shared an apartment with like one of my best friends. Two of our other friends were living like down the road from us, and we had just like a really tight knit friend group. And all of a sudden that had changed very quickly, and I was the one who had left, and some of my friends were still in Groningen. Like kind of, it felt like life carried on for them, even though I had gone to a new place. So in a way, being with my brother and his girlfriend and just having them around and having, we had a lot of great times living together. I still joke with them now every time I see them. I'm like, oh, the family's back together. Like, I'm your child and I'm back, I'm home now. Um, but having them around me was actually probably a lot better than me living by myself in an apartment in Rotterdam in an emotional sense. Like, just,
Yeah.
I feel like their presence was really, really helpful. And at the same
And
time,
then you were helpful
for
for
Cassie,
her
she
situation with
needed
the
that.
foot.
So
Yeah.
it does. It all. I think it does all work out the way it needs to. And
Yeah.
I also think that there was an element of sometimes when you're forced to be in a place of like stillness where you can't change the situation no matter how much you try, it forces you to really accept the way things are. And that's something that I struggle with a lot. I don't like change. I don't like feeling out of control. And that was obviously one of those situations that put everything that I don't like to the test.
Yeah.
And it makes you grow in a way that I just don't think you can otherwise. So it definitely taught me a lot about just accepting things and also realizing that there's always a solution in some way, shape, or form. There's always people that can help you. Um, it's never as bad as you think it is. So that was something that I had to keep reminding myself to get through.
Nice. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, no problem. So yeah.
I feel like we could honestly talk for hours because there's just so much to unpack.
Hmm.
My suggestion is that in a few weeks, we'll do this again.
Yeah.
We'll have you back.
To talk about.
I don't know what Leah's take is on that.
Oh, I don't care.
Okay, Leah doesn't care,
Yeah.
so she's good with it.
Yeah.
No, because I feel like, you have a very unique story, and I think a lot of people can take a lot of things from you.
Mm.
Um, and you have just really cool things to share. But I also don't want a 3 hour episode.
That's fair. Very fair. That is very true. I didn't even
So
realize how
it's
an hour had
better.
gone by. I was like, damn.
Yeah, no, time goes quick.
It does.
So I think it's better to kind of pause it
Yeah.
here and then continue our conversation another time in a few weeks,
No, for sure.
um,
That was really
to
fun.
get to know you more as well. Anyway, is there anything from your side that you would like to share with us today, like besides the things that we talked about?
Or if you have some like
Questions?
questions or anything like that that we can maybe answer fast
Ooh,
ish.
I'm trying to think.
Yeah, we're
Well,
being we're putting you on the spot
you
here.
guys have just been through your own kind of like transitional periods, and they're quite different. I'd say in just in where you are and what you're doing. So, have you guys been trying to do things to make that easier for yourself? Have you found things that work for you in just in adjusting to being in a different place in life? Or are you kind of just rolling with it for now?
I'll let you go first.
Oh, okay, I get to go first. For me, the biggest thing through this transition was I said yes to this position and this job up here. And when I said yes to it, I was like, oh yeah, of course I'll do it. Like, it doesn't really matter. And the closer it got, the biggest thing for me was to accept that I'm doing something for myself, which makes me sound very arrogant. And
Not at
I
all.
don't think
Like,
so.
as Mark can attest, the last 5 years have been very much like everyone from the outside, everyone would be like, oh, I've been to school, I did this swimming thing, I had a job, like all this stuff, and it looked like I was doing what I wanted with my life and making decisions based on, stuff I wanted to do. There was always a background running where that wasn't the case, and I was always, especially the first 3 years, my life revolved around other things and things that I put on myself or was expected of me just because I was there and I was the closest one.
Yeah.
And I think with this transition, the biggest thing for me was accepting that this is something that I want to do, and I made the decision to do it for myself, and that is okay.
Still, did you have to work through a bit of like guilt in terms of like
Oh, there was
making
a
that?
lot of guilt. It came and went. It was definitely waves because it fluctuated with anger. um, so it was like I would get super angry at my situation. I was super pissed off, and then something would happen or someone would say something or there would be some scenario and then I'd be like, oh, maybe this isn't good, maybe I really need to be here, like I should be putting more time, like the waves of like emotional distress were very prominent.
Mm.
And it got to a point, I would say last like week leading into my move, maybe 2 weeks, it got probably 1 to 2 weeks that I was just like, I'm done.
That was a week.
It was the last week. Okay, so it was the
Yeah.
last week that my anger and my just frustration overtook the guilt, and I was like, I just need out. Um, and when I got up here, I felt, obviously there was a lot of transitions and just getting to know new people and like the whole position and what my responsibilities were and all that kind of stuff. But that was work and kind of like the work academic stress, research stress, which you can kind of leave. Like you go in, do it, and you leave. But all the outside stress kind of went away. And the past 2 weeks, yeah, it's been 2 weeks, I have really noticed that that is no longer there. And it, I think, has kind of changed my just emotional roller coaster, my day to day thoughts, just my probably my health, my blood pressure,
The
you
will to
know,
live.
yeah, my will to live. So a lot of that like outside stress and stuff that most people didn't see that were going on before is no longer there. So I think in reality that was probably the biggest thing I had to accept is like I said yes, and I didn't really think what that would mean until I got closer, and then it was like, no, this is a yes. I had to accept the yes, and then it was like, no, this is a yes I have to have, or I'm not going to make it.
Yeah. Are you happy?
Right now, yes. As long as things stay good ish.
Good.
This semester I think is, or this like August to December period is definitely going to be the hardest as I settle in, and just kind of get all the basic stuff in, all the training stuff and everything like that. Once that settles down and I can just start doing the projects and start doing the writing and everything like that, it will probably be a little bit smoother. But in terms of life choice on moving up here, yes, I'm happy.
Good. Yeah.
That's very good to
Yeah.
hear. And from my side, I've been mostly okay. And I say mostly because I'm adjusting to a life with another person
Mm.
where he sometimes forgets that I found a job, I moved here, I'm doing all these things so that he can live his dream. And he tends to forget that. And that's been hard sometimes because, then I'm all day at work and then he is at home and he's complaining about how tired he is. And I'm
Mm.
like, okay, well, I wake up at 7 every night or every morning, which isn't that early, but you lay in bed until 9, 9:30,
Mm.
then have breakfast, have lunch, take another nap, go to practice. So it's like, and then he kind of takes the card of like, but I'm adjusting to different culture, different country, different
Oh,
this, different that. And I'm like, I understand that. You wanted that. I never really wanted to move this far away from my parents. I never really wanted to work while I was still in school because it's not ideal.
Yeah.
I never really wanted to have to deal with these volleyball people,
Mm.
but I'm doing it so you can live your dream. Um, so it's like I also moved to a place where I basically know no one.
Yeah.
I know you, like I know Georgia, but it's like you're still you're pretty far away still.
Yeah.
It's not that it's like, hey, you want to come over for a coffee? It's like, no, we got to plan something.
Yeah.
It's like I know no one here. He has his entire volleyball team.
Mhm.
I know no one.
you
Um,
just got to insert yourself. That's what I did.
Right. But like, do I want to?
Yeah, it's fair. It's fair.
Um, so it's like I'm slowly also adjusting to it. Like the running a household and all that stuff is fine, but I do feel a little like, I don't have people really.
Is that the main thing that you would like if you think to
Well,
make the situation better for you?
what would make the situation better for me is that I have a boyfriend that knows how to do house chores.
Uh-huh.
Okay, I was gonna say, don't become the mom. I lived that,
No,
so I have a couple years, a year or so, year and a half experience on you
yeah.
on this, and
So we
I,
had this
yeah,
conversation yesterday,
Hmm.
because I also was like, well, I come home and then this isn't clean, this isn't clean, this isn't clean, this isn't clean.
Yeah.
And like I'm not trying to be the mother, but it's like it's basic little
Hmm.
things. Whenever you take off your clothes, put them in the laundry basket instead of in front of the laundry basket. You know, it's
or
like,
just on the floor, you know.
right, like why? It's you put it in front of the laundry basket, but you don't put it in the laundry basket. It's literally one extra move that you have to make.
Yeah.
So it's the little things like that. And he really feels bad about this, but yesterday I asked him if he could already cut the vegetables for me for the pasta today that I was, or the couscous that I was making,
Hmm.
because he didn't really do anything today. And I got home and I was in a pretty shitty mood. And then I come home and none of it has been cut. And I'm just like, okay, so I'm already a little pissy. And then I come home and I see that none of the things have been cut, but here I am making dinner, making sure that he can eat, making sure I can eat while also working 9 hours a day,
Mm.
while then waking up again the next morning. So those are kind of stressors that I'm dealing with right now. And Michael and I are working through those in our own pace. But like today, I just came home and I like broke down
Mm.
because I was like, it's just too much. And I was just really thinking like I need someone right now, but I don't have someone right now, you
You
know?
need a wine night.
I do need a wine
I'm off
night.
on Sunday. I'm just saying.
You know what?
I'm not doing anything.
Honestly, but then Michael's here, so
Okay, so we can.
Well, you can go there.
Yeah,
I know, true, but I'm not allowed to drive when I have alcohol in my
that's
system.
true.
Can't you
We
take
will.
a
We'll make a
train?
plan. We will figure it out.
We'll make a
We
plan.
will discuss
Um,
logistics.
no, so like it's definitely difficult trying to adjust to working 36 hours and now also having to schedule like my classes around it or my work around my
Mm.
classes while also feeling like I have a toddler in the house.
Is he
Um,
receptive to the conversations that you have? Like,
he is, but he always finds a way to pin it on my behavior,
Yeah.
my tone,
mm,
my attitude. It's like, well, you always mention your period and do this. I'm like, hold on. I never once blamed any of my angerness or feelings on my period.
yeah,
Because I
But
don't.
also, it is a scientific problem that females have. Let's
No,
just
it
be
is.
clear.
But I don't like using it in arguments of like, no, I'm just cranky because I'm on my period.
yeah,
Like, I don't do that. It's like, no, I'm cranky because I come home and I have fucking maggots in the house. I have unwashed dishes. I have all these things that, just piled up while I'm at work and you're here at the house and you don't do any of those
mm,
things. That's what I'm pissy
yeah,
about, not because of my period.
yeah,
No, no, no. I mean, it is fair. I mean, it is an adjustment because, like, I went through that too, and Hunter and I moved in together, and there were times we would get in legit fights because I'm like, I'm not doing this. Like, I'm
Yeah,
not your mom. I don't have to pick up your clothes. But I'm also not going to live in an apartment that is trash because you can't pick up your clothes
yeah.
or you
right.
can't help with dishes or take the trash out.
I mean, he's had his duffel bag with new gear that he received on Saturday right there. It's been there since Saturday. He has a pair of dirty socks in that room and a pair of like jeans And I'm like, I'm not going to pick it up. It's not my responsibility. Um, like, after I made dinner, I put away my stuff, but let his stuff there because I'm like, you've had all this time to clean it.
Mm.
So it's like we're definitely working through it and having both to make adjustments. And it hasn't been easy, but I know eventually we'll get to that point, I think.
Yeah.
The good thing is, though, is that we communicate about it and we talk about it. So whenever there is a frustration, we talk about it.
Because it is a big
The
Well, that's
one,
conversation to
better.
both
That's
of you.
better than what it used to be.
Mm.
yes, yes.
Yeah.
Because they used to be not talking, so it's definitely a good improvement. It is a step up, yeah. No, and like I totally get it because for him too, he's away from his family that barely talks to him, and then when they do, they like ask him a question, and then before he's even able to answer, they switch to the next topic, and like they want him to be there, but they don't really support him being here.
Mm.
So it's like it's really difficult for him to deal with that too. So I get it, but it's doesn't mean it's necessarily easy. But I do think I need friends. Yeah, I mean because I
I don't have
lived in the
many,
Netherlands
but
for yeah, like a year now again, and I'm very grateful to have met Georgia because you're a great friend and I love you.
I feel the same about you.
um, but I do feel like I need to expand my just social circle a
Yeah.
little bit with more contacts. To just be more casual, to be like, hey, you want to grab a lunch today?
It worked for us.
It did work for us.
It worked.
But I can't get like that deep with that many people,
No,
so
you don't have to get that deep. But just be like, you want
no.
to go grab a coffee?
Yeah, coffee and chat. Yeah, no. But yeah, I think we should leave it at that for now. And there are definitely more topics to talk about. And we'll hope to see you again soon
Yeah.
on our podcast. And how did you like being here?
It was really cool. I mean, it felt like at the beginning, I was like very conscious of the fact that like we're doing something, but then it just became like chatting, and all of a sudden I was like, whoa, it's been an hour.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
Yeah, it goes fast.
it was really,
that's
really
how it goes. Yeah.
I really enjoyed it. And just
Well,
like,
that's
yeah,
good. Then we hope to see you again. And, please share our podcast
yeah,
and our vision
I will.
and the things that we do here.
I will.
Because we really hope to inspire some young adults like us who are struggling with certain things in their
Definitely.
lives.
I think it's a great
So,
thing.
thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. With that, we want to thank you for joining us as we. Now, I forgot the outro too.
Oh
Damn.
man.
As we share insightful
Mm-hmm.
thoughts where even though worlds may seem apart,
I don't think this is
the
right.
connection remains strong. I know
I
that
felt
part.
that in my heart and soul. So I think you got it right.
Thank you.
Feel it.
Anyways, we'll see everyone at some point.
Yay!
Bye.